Have you ever looked at the news and just wondered why some conflicts seem to go on forever with absolutely no end in sight? It's a tough question. And believe it or not, the answer might not be in today's headlines, but in the surprisingly relevant ideas of a philosopher from the 17th century.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We're looking at the world in early 2026. And to put it mildly, the international landscape is simmering. It's a pretty tense place.
So take the Middle East. That long simmering shadow war, it's not in the shadows anymore. It is absolutely boiled over. We're now seeing direct U.S. and Israeli strikes aimed at crippling Iran's nuclear program, even targeting its leadership. The situation has escalated dramatically.
And look, this isn't just happening in one part of the world. In South Asia, that very fragile ceasefire along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border has completely shattered. The entire region is now engulfed in what you can only call open warfare.
Now, it's tempting to see these as just disconnected flare-ups, but they're not. They are symptoms of a fundamental feature of our world. There is no global 911. There's no supreme authority to step in and enforce peace between nations.
To really grasp the cold, hard logic that's driving all this violence, we need to turn to a thinker who witnessed his own world get torn apart by conflict, Thomas Hobbes. So, what really explains this relentless cycle? The key isn't in a breaking news alert. It's actually in the powerful and, frankly, pretty unsettling ideas of the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes.
Hobbes had this famous thought experiment he called the state of nature. Just imagine, he said, a world with no government, no police, no central power to enforce rules and, as he put it, keep them all in awe. What happens then? Well, his conclusion was that it would lead to a war of every man against every man.
And he was completely unflinching in his description. Life in this state, he wrote in his masterpiece Leviathan, would be, and this is the quote everyone knows, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Just a constant, grinding struggle for survival.
Now, Hobbes' solution for individuals was to create what he called a Leviathan, an all-powerful state to enforce order. But that just raises the critical question for us today. What happens on the international stage where there is no global Leviathan to keep the nations of the world in line?
This gets right to the heart of Hobbes' whole argument. Covenants without the sword are but words. Think about it. Treaties, agreements, international laws. Without a power strong enough to enforce them, they are, in the end, meaningless. And in international relations, this is what we mean by anarchy. It's not chaos and riots in the streets, it's a much simpler, more structural idea, the absence of a world government. And this forces every single nation into a system of self-help, where you, and you alone, are responsible for your own survival.
This table really illustrates what we can call the Leviathan gap. On one side, you have the covenants, the words, international courts ordering actions, the UN calling for ceasefires. On the other side, the on-the-ground result, non-compliance, continued fighting. Without that enforcement mechanism, that sword, the words just don't have power.
All right, so let's take this framework and apply it to the friction between Pakistan and Afghanistan, a conflict where covenants and agreements have repeatedly failed.
At the heart of this conflict is the Durand Line, a border drawn by British India way back in 1893 that has been a source of tension ever since. Afghanistan has never fully accepted it. So, when the Taliban returned to power in 2021, any real hopes for cooperation just unraveled. And by 2025, the situation had devolved into open warfare.
At this point, trust has completely evaporated. Pakistan blames militants based in Afghanistan for attacks. The Taliban denies it. So, Pakistan launches airstrikes. The Taliban retaliates. Each side accuses the other of sheltering extremists to destabilize them. When the covenants fail, the border reverts to a Hobbesian state of nature, where the only thing that settles disputes is force.
This deep-seated mistrust creates a really powerful dynamic. It forces nations, even those that might prefer peace, into a posture of constant vigilance, of always being ready for a fight. Hobbes had a specific word for this: diffidence. It's not about being shy, it's a deep, and importantly, a rational mistrust of others. In a world with no guarantees, this fear becomes a powerful motivator, leading nations to think that maybe, just maybe, striking first is the safest path to survival.
And this diffidence, it fuels a tragic, self-reinforcing spiral. Just look at the Iran-Israel conflict.
Iran pursues nuclear capability for what it sees as deterrence, a guarantee of its own survival. But Israel views that same capability as an existential threat, something that demands a preemptive strike. That strike is then seen by Iran as naked aggression, which of course justifies more military development. And so the cycle just continues, with each defensive move perceived as an offensive threat.
This brings us to a crucial concept in international relations, the security dilemma. It's a paradox where the very actions a state takes to make itself more secure, building up its military, forming alliances, inevitably makes its rivals feel less secure. This fuels arms races and increases the risk of conflict, even if no one initially wanted a war.
And so this leaves us with a stark and, a profoundly unsettling question. In a world without a global Leviathan, is the only truly rational path for any nation to simply prepare for war? It's a bleak conclusion, for sure, but it's one that Hobbes's cold, hard logic forces us to confront.